Hello, you're watching news from Kazakhstan, and here are the headlines. What do Almaty residents and guests of the city think of President's order to restrict the entry of vehicles to the city center? High interest rates on loans, fines and paperwork. MPs demand a response from the National Bank. The singing daughter of the president, laughing oligarchs, and the head of Akorda administration. Almaty hosts an exhibition of caricatures on Kazakh politicians. Kazakh Corporation refused to increase the payment for striking miners and pay them the annual bonus. This was voiced by the workers of Nurkazgan mine of Karaganda region after a 2-hour-long meeting.
2 days ago, the entire day shift of more than 200 miners went on strike, demanding better working conditions, wage increases and bonus payments. The 2-hour standoff with the management resulted in promises from the administration, which made the miners go back to work. A follow-up meeting took place on Thursday, although not on the territory of the mine as was planned, but in one of the corporation's municipal offices. Workers believe it was done to prevent the participation of other employees. The 2-hour meeting was attended by around 70 miners, but the press was not allowed inside. The talks resulted in yet another promise to improve working conditions, but a rejection of bonus payments. Workers now say they do not intend to give up, but withhold any further plans of action. They explain that there were a couple of incidents at the mine, so there will be no premiums, no promises regarding wage increases either, so everything will stay the same. They promise nothing.
In Shymkent, 20 hard workers for more than 2 months are not able to collect their salaries. Representatives of major construction company claim that they make prepayments while the final payment will be made upon completion of works. The construction workers are outraged and say that they have not received any money, even though the company promised to pay every 10 days.
Day after day, discontented workers gather next to the building of an unfinished hotel. They have been working at this construction site for several months, but never been paid. I had to pawn my wife's pendant, as we did not have enough money to buy anything for kids for the new year. We were promised to be paid every 10 days, but never saw a dime. It was always tomorrow, the day after tomorrow, and lasted until the new year. Danabek Toyshikov, a representative of the construction company Geschäft, said that advance payments in cash have been made on a regular basis to the foreman, alas with no official documentation. Toyshikov does not know why the money never reached the construction workers. We do hire a workforce, but we do not sign labor agreements. They can bring us their own contracts if they want, but we do not work this way. In the end, the pay is based on results. When the site is 100% complete, we draft a commissioning act, sign it, and pay the money to the workers. Larisa Harkova, a labor relations expert, explained why employers prefer to hire workers without employment contracts. When there are no signed agreements, workers cannot prove they have not been paid, since officially they are not even registered as working for the organization. I believe this has to do with both exploitation on the part of the employers as well as employees' illiteracy. When you have a work arrangement, it is your responsibility to make at least a temporary labor contract. A representative of the construction company told the workers he will look into the situation and cover salary arrears in the near future. In response, employees said they heard similar promises many times already and sent a pile of letters asking to resolve the labor conflict to higher authorities. Unfortunately, it is difficult to predict the outcome of the situation now.
The vertical solution of one of the most important problems of Almaty, the entry ban of vehicles to the city center. Many wonder whether yet another order of the President of Kazakhstan will resolve the traffic issue.
The President of Kazakhstan, Nursultan Nazarbayev, has issued a statement addressing several persisting problems that the mayor of Almaty, Ahmedjan Yesimov, has been struggling with for the past few years. The head of state intends to enforce the use of pollution-free transportation by the Almaty population and also limit the city entrance for non-resident vehicles. I have instructed the mayor to restrict motorized downtown access. Car owners should leave their vehicles outside city limits and get to the center by means of public transportation. The head of the drivers' union, Eduard Tedokov, endorsed the president's view. However, he also expressed concern that the initiative is likely to result in a toll bar installation at the city entrance. The expert, who spent a few years studying the practices of dealing with traffic problems abroad, suggested other solutions like building multi-level uptown car parking, introducing new eco-friendly buses and trolleys, as well as laying additional tram lines. Implementing this program does require serious financing, but we need to start doing something now to avoid a total traffic collapse later. Umirtai Begimbetov has been making a living for his large family with 5 children by transporting passengers from Taraz to Almaty for 7 years now. Unfortunately, once his old Volkswagen with Taraz plates gets under the Almaty limited entry provision, Umirtai will have no choice but to join the ranks of the unemployed. I will not be able to get the Almaty license plate because I do not own any real estate in the city. Besides, the car insurance cost in Almaty is at least 5 times higher than in Taraz. Personally, I do not believe that restricted entrance for non-resident vehicles will solve the city traffic issues. In the meantime, experts and car owners are convinced that even the presidential decree and the talks of senior government officials are not likely to bring the undesirable traffic flow to a halt overnight. Citizens of Kazakhstan seem to believe in a time-proven statement that even the harshest of laws and decrees are compensated by their rigorous non-fulfillment.
For now, vehicles can freely enter Almaty city center. However, the import of vehicles under Euro 2 standard is no longer permitted. The corresponding ban entered into force on January 1st. At the same time, car dealers note that Kazakh residents are more inclined to purchase Russian vehicles lately. Find out what caused the success of AvtoVAZ in the next report.
These cars are quite popular in Kazakhstan for their reliability, good quality, wide availability and the compliance to the new Euro 3 state standard. That alone is already enough reason for the appreciation, say car dealers. In 2012, more than 40% of their stock happened to be the product of the Russian car-making industry. Kazakhstan joined the customs union, which increased the sales. These cars are in great demand with very high quality of their assembly. They are cheap in service while spare parts are not expensive and are always available. However, Almaty resident Aybek is in no rush to trade his car for Russian brands despite their availability. Ironically, the low price is what seems to be a big disadvantage in his opinion. Even if I was offered a new Russian car, I still would not take it, because cars like Lada drastically lose their value after only 2 years of use. You may have to sell it for twice as cheap. The customs union caused the rates of custom duties to skyrocket. Prices for customs clearance now range from 70 to 150% of the car's cost itself. The import of foreign vehicle brands decreased significantly. This, however, does not apply to Russian brands, and that is the very secret of the rising demand, say the experts. We were simply forced into it. First, they have limited the market to 17 million, while the spending capacity of Kazakhstan is lower than that of Russia. It is obvious that the Russian market is much larger, yet they have seriously limited their market as well. The sole purpose was to develop the Russian car industry. In the past, there were 2 attempts to introduce the Euro 3 standard in Kazakhstan, but it never happened for various reasons. This time, however, it rather sounds like a sure shot because it is a part of the technical requirements of the customs union. According to the government, the innovation will help reduce air pollution, yet Gennady Shostakov, the owner of 3 cars, is rather skeptical about it. The quality of diesel fuel and gasoline barely correlates with the Euro standards. Therefore, even if we receive the decent quality vehicles, the fuel's quality will still cause pollution. The current success rate of the auto industry in Kazakhstan has not reached its limit. In the near future, the share of Lada, Zhiguli and UAZ taking the roads will grow as high as 60% of Kazakhstan's market, predict analytical experts.
Those who are not planning to drive Russian Zhiguli and the possible restriction of vehicle movement should wait for new metro routes. Project of 2 metro stations was already presented, and based on the reports of the metro management, they will emerge in a year, while now the metro is setting records of profits by making almost $3.5 million a year. However, passengers are still dissatisfied by the provided services. Why? Find out from the next report.
Almaty Metro Managing Director Kudrali Bigasylov says that the city line will expand by another 3 kilometers, thanks to the personal efforts of Mayor Akhmetjan Yusimov. The city administration has recently presented plans for the construction of 2 new metro stations, Sayran and Moscow. The latter is named in gratitude to neighboring Russia for the station named Almaty, launched not long ago in Moscow. Back in Kazakhstan, nearly 7 million passengers have taken the only system line in the last year. The project remains costly for the city, but it does not stop the development nevertheless. We cannot raise the fare yet, since not all city residents will be able to afford it. The metro is not the only unprofitable project for the state, as there are other passenger carriers in a similar position. Blogger Ivan Glushenko was one of the few people who tested the system before the official launch. He was not even born when the construction took off in the 1980s. Now Ivan shares his own vision of the metro's future, which could help it avoid becoming a relic of the Soviet past. In my dreams, a subway station is located right where I live. It must be a place where one can have lunch and surf the internet. The lack of Wi-Fi in our system is a huge disadvantage. It is offered in Moscow for a long time so that passengers can read e-books and play games. But another city resident, Rahat Rahimbayev, questions the logic behind pouring so much money underground, since he used it only 3 times this year, and only to see what all the fuss is about. There is no metro station where I need to go. My school is located on Al-Farabi Street, and my apartment is even further. In general, people use the metro when their relatives are visiting them or just to have fun with friends. These days, I see fewer people taking it. Metro specialists say that every part of the city will have a station in the future. Currently, the construction extends to a new line that will link the system with the railway station Almaty 1. The aforementioned stations, Sairan and Moscow, are expected to open in the first half of 2014.
Last Wednesday, an incident happened at the major railroad station. Police evacuated 200 passengers of the train on Astana-Petropavlovsk route and 150 personnel of the railroad station. Police received an anonymous call claiming that the bomb is planted in the building. This is already the second false call this year when plotters inform of allegedly planted explosive devices.
In total, law enforcement agencies registered 48 cases of phone terrorism in 2012. The police reports that National Security Committee agents, emergency situations personnel, members of the prosecutor's office and several ambulances arrived at the railway station following the call, while canine units checked the entire premise and the surrounding area. We have checked all the premises on location but did not find any explosive devices. The Astana-Petropavlovsk passenger train was delayed for an hour. We are looking into the identity of the caller who reported about the device, and then we will bring him to account.
What is the meaning of Kazakh economy, whose interests are lobbied by the National Bank, and why second-tier banks do not face their clients? On Thursday, MPs in Astana, supported by the businessmen, questioned the financiers. Details next.
The National Bank became the target of another wave of criticism coming from parliament members who believe that the financial structure has been lobbying the interests of 38 second-tier banks. This selective approach results in a series of client rights violations during the credit accommodation process and other banking services. Numerous inquiries submitted by the parliament to coordinating authorities during the last year seem to have little to no impact on the situation. We requested setting up a commission to investigate servicing and overstatement of effective interest rates, which feel like extortion for businesses and are performed by the banks on a regular basis. The official response was that, according to the National Bank's estimation within the recurrent analysis, the financial institutions in question maintain a conservative credit policy. Pirwashov resented the fact that the interest rate in supposedly prosperous Kazakhstan is 10% higher than in crisis-hit Europe. In turn, local businessmen shared his sentiment regarding numerous problems with loan applications and unscheduled credit returns, which appears to be an unfavorable outcome for banks. Some time ago, we experienced problems associated with advanced loan repayment. The bank turned the situation into an unfair advantage. In the midstream of the discussion, participants brought up the corruption issue by referring to the bank employees taking bribes for cutting red tape and securing loan procurement. In response to accusations, the deputy chairman of the National Bank, who flew in from Almaty to attend the meeting, chose to resort to generalities. Between 2010 and 2012, the National Bank received over 14,000 complaints about malfeasance of financial institution employees submitted by legal entities and private individuals. We responded by performing in-house audit checks and taking other essential enforcement measures. At the end of the meeting, the National Bank representatives promised to set up a special committee on financial service consumer protection and create a blacklist for dishonest bank employees.
250 funny but recognizable portraits. Kazakhstan State Museum in Almaty hosted an exhibition of friendly caricatures on well-known Kazakh figures. Next report shows the borderline of humor set for Kazakh artists.
The singing MP and the head of state's daughter, Dariga Nazarbayeva, the president's chief of staff, Karim Masimov, with a penny in his hand, the laughing face of the oligarch Alexander Mashkevich on the dollar bill. Every drawing here has its own meaning and explanation. Yarkin Nurakjan has been creating cartoons for almost 30 years, and nobody ever held a grudge against him. All drawings portray celebrities, although the artist still has not dared to take on the president. There are some kind of forces that do not allow me to draw this person as a cartoon. Fine arts experts believe that cartoons are actually a very powerful weapon. Funny and yet truth-telling pictures describe people better than words. Also, a clear personal stance is always required to become a cartoonist. Anyone who notices all the flaws and failures in the country and also celebrates its successes is most likely to possess a strong personality to work in this genre. I believe it is not necessarily dangerous, but it certainly speaks for the strong political views and citizenship. Is caricature only a way to fight boredom, or is it a fierce call to action? It is certainly the most popular genre for the printed publications. Cartoonist Igor Kiko admits that in order to create an illustration, one needs not only a subtle sense of humor, but also a thorough understanding of the issues, especially when choosing characters. I like to draw on personal themes or common problems, whether it's bribery, corruption, and so on. And when it comes to a particular person, it may really be constructed as a weapon, because there is a slight chance to offend someone, and of course to receive some legal action in return. Modern Kazakhstan cartoon art directly depends on the level of freedom in society. Culture experts insist that the art of caricature may only develop dynamically in a truly democratic society.
A series of lawsuits continue in Almaty over the website of journalist and well-known public figure Gulzhan Yergalieva. This time the court is trying to find out whether the defendant transferred money to Kazakh orphans.
The Medeo District Court of Almaty continues to review the case of the city orphanage number 1 versus the chief editor of Gulzhan.org website. The defending lawyer of Gulzhan Yergalieva says the case is still open, although the issue has already been settled. The total amount of $33,000 in compensation has already been transferred to the orphanage account. $26,000 were returned in 2 transfers by the new year, and the amount left was paid out between trials. The trial started last year when Saltanata Khanova, the wife of Akmala Region Governor Kairat Kozhamzharov, sued Gulzhan Yergalieva for her 2 opinion pieces. The court ordered Yergalieva to pay Akhanova a compensation for moral damages, but the website took its time in fulfilling the court order. In response, Akhanova gave all the money away to the orphanage, and its management requested the court to put an arrest on the website's headquarters. It is clear that the whole trial is a setup orchestrated to do away with me. It is not worth playing these games. I have done everything to settle the issue. Neither these words nor receipts seem to convince Judge Bakhadjan Teshikhanov. The current issue concerns not only $5,000 left, which you have to give evidence of whether they were transferred to the orphanage account, or the entire amount of $33,000. Having stated this, the judge left the courtroom and once again the trial was postponed. Meanwhile, the observers have given their own opinion on the matter. The information field in Kazakhstan is completely empty now. There are no good websites and interesting newspapers where people can get information they are interested in. Gulzhan Yergalieva says that Thursday's hearing was already the 18th. In the last 6 weeks, she saw a procession of different plaintiffs, lawsuits, courtrooms, and judges, but the respondent was always the same person. The trial case over $33,000 for the orphanage will likely see its conclusion next Monday.
Internal forces of Kazakhstan celebrated their 21st anniversary on Thursday. Distinguished personnel were awarded with medals and certificates in Almaty.
The event was attended by veterans and active duty officers who recalled their time of service and commemorated the fallen brethren. The internal forces of Kazakhstan were founded by the presidential decree signed January 10, 1992, setting their mission to ensure the safety of all country citizens. During the ceremony, Chief Warrant Officer Kazabek Sharipov noted that the service in the internal troops has improved significantly since the 1990s. I was 17 when I started in the internal troops. There were tough times with provisions back in 1995, but everything is in the past now, and we have entered the development stage. Currently, the internal troops are fully supplied.
This is all we have time for now. Thank you for watching. Stay well.